I have the leaked files to prove it. To have destroyed 847 pages. Every photograph planned to destroy my family. March 2024. A Mossad hard drive landed on my desk. Inside, I found my 6-year-old daughter's face. They photographed her at school, mapped which gate she uses, planned extraction routes like she's a target, not a child. My wife's medical records, my parents' bank accounts, 11 years of surveillance on my entire family. This started in 2013 when I was just a captain, no power, no office, but they already labeled me future threat to Western interests. I'm Captain Ibrahim Traoré, President of Burkina Faso. I know exactly why they're doing this for. I shut down their gold mines, banned their uranium operations. I said no to letting them rob my country. Now they photograph my daughter at school. This is how they control Africa, threaten our children, break the fathers. They call it intelligence. I openly call it Israel terrorism. Those 847 pages show I'm not alone. 54 African nations, hundreds of leaders, all our families in their files, all of us targeted. I'm publishing everything. The files are backed up in 7 countries. Every journalist can have them. Every African leader can see how deep this goes. They thought this would stay secret. They were wrong. You think threatening my 6-year-old will make me reopen those mines? My answer is no. Burkina Faso's resources belong to Burkina Faso, not to Tel Aviv, not to Washington. We're done being afraid. I know exactly why they're doing this. Let me tell you the exact purpose of threatening my whole family. It's not about intelligence, it's about control. 2022, I shut down their gold mining operations. French companies were extracting our gold, paying pennies in royalties, shipping billions in wealth to Paris. I said no. Those mines are closed. 2023, I banned their uranium operations. They were taking our uranium for their nuclear reactors while my people, Burkinabe people, sat in darkness without electricity. I said no, that uranium stays in our ground until it benefits our people. 2024, I expelled their military bases. 4,000 French troops on our soil, not to protect us, but to protect their interests. I said get out. And what happened to ME? Within weeks, the surveillance on my family tripled. New teams watching my children, new operations targeting my wife, new threats against MY parents. The files show it clearly. A Mossad cable I'm holding right now, dated February 2024. Traoré has closed access to strategic resources. Recommend activation of family pressure protocols. Children are optimal leverage points. My children, they wrote that my 6-year-old daughter is an optimal leverage point because I won't let them steal our gold. They don't need to occupy us militarily anymore. They occupy ME psychologically. They threaten my children. They compromise my family. They build files on everyone I love. Then when an African leader tries to serve his people instead of Western corporations, they activate those files against US. They leak fabricated corruption evidence about me. They threaten to harm my family members. They create scandals from surveillance they've been conducting on ME for years. Most leaders break. I've seen it happen right in front of ME. They reopen the mines. They sign the contracts. They let the theft continue. Because they're protecting their children, just like I'm protecting mine. I understand that. I'm a father. The instinct to protect your children is the most powerful force in the world. There's no shame in that instinct. It's what makes us human. It's what separates us from the monsters who photograph children to use as leverage. But here's what Mossad didn't calculate about me. My intelligence services told ME about their operations before they activated them against ME. I knew about the surveillance on my family. I knew about the files on MY children. I knew about the planned operations against MY wife. I've been watching them watch ME for years. Let ME explain how this worked. 4 years before I became president, my intelligence officer, MY Life, came to MI Life, came to ME with disturbing information. Captain, he said, foreign services are building files on you, detailed files. Your family is under systematic surveillance. At first, I didn't believe him. I was nobody then. Why would Mossad care about a military instructor? But he showed ME proof, photographs of MY children taken from long-range surveillance, records of MY father's banking transactions that only foreign intelligence could access, medical files on MY wife that had been copied from hospital databases. Someone was watching my family, someone with serious resources and serious intent. So I made a decision that saved my life and my family. I started watching them back. I assigned my most trusted officers to identify everyone watching ME, every surveillance team, every technical operation, every human asset they were running near my family. It took 2 years. 2 years of careful counter-surveillance. 2 years of identifying their patterns. 2 years of mapping their entire operation against ME. And what we found shocked even ME. They had 6 full-time surveillance teams on MY family. 6 teams, rotating shifts, 24-hour coverage on ME and everyone I loved. They had penetrated my children's school. A teacher who wasn't really a teacher. Reporting my daughter's schedule, her routines, her vulnerabilities. They had compromised my wife's medical clinic, a nurse who copied her files and sent them to a foreign intelligence service. They had recruited one of my father's business associates, feeding them information about his finances, looking for anything irregular they could exploit against ME. This wasn't casual surveillance. This was a full-spectrum intelligence operation targeting my entire family. But here's what gave ME the advantage over them. I knew. And they didn't know I knew. So I waited. I watched their operations. I documented their methods. I identified their assets. They photographed my 6-year-old daughter at school, marked the kidnapping routes in red, called her an optimal leverage point in their files. Mossad, 847 pages, all about destroying my family because I closed their gold mines. I'm Captain Ibrahim Traoré. I have their files. I know their operations against every African leader. And instead of hiding in fear, I'm publishing everything. They wanted to use my children against ME. I'm using their crimes against them. Welcome to the counterattack. And I prepared my countermeasures for the day they would activate against ME. When I participated in the transition government in 2022, their surveillance intensified immediately. I expected that. When I became president in 2023, their operations went into high gear. I expected that too. When I shut down their gold mines and expelled French forces, I knew they would activate everything they had built against ME. And when that hard drive landed on my desk in March 2024, it wasn't a surprise to ME. It was confirmation. Confirmation of everything I suspected about their operations against me, proof of everything they denied doing to my family. But here's what made my blood run cold when I read those files. Those 847 pages aren't just about my family, they're not just targeting ME. I found references to operations against other African leaders. Page 234 of the leaked files, a section titled Regional Targets, West Africa Priority List. Kenya, ME 3 political figures under surveillance since 2015, all identified as sovereignty risks just like ME. One is a senator who proposed nationalizing foreign-owned telecommunications. They have files on his 2 daughters, school schedules, security assessments, extraction contingencies, their words, not mine. Another is a military general who questioned Western military presence. They documented his son's drug rehabilitation, private medical information they're holding for the right moment to destroy his father's career. The third is a presidential candidate who promised to renegotiate mining contracts. They've been tracking his mistress for 3 years, waiting to leak that scandal if he gets too close to power. Nigeria, 5 military officers with files documenting family vulnerabilities just like mine. A colonel who advocates for African-made weapons instead of Western imports. They have his wife's gambling debts documented, ready to expose her and destroy him through her. A general who criticized AFRICOM's presence in West Africa. They've identified his son's business partner as corruptible, planning to create a fake corruption scandal linking the general to his son's business. 3 other officers, all advocates for military independence from Western training and doctrine, all with files on their families, all marked for neutralization if they gain political influence. South Africa, 2 cabinet ministers marked for pressure operations just like what they're doing to ME. The Minister of Mineral Resources who proposed increasing royalties on foreign mining companies. They have files on his brother's tax irregularities. Not illegal, but enough to create a scandal if leaked selectively. The Minister of Defense who questioned South Africa's military cooperation agreements with NATO. They've documented his daughter's involvement in student protests, ready to paint her as a radical to pressure him through family reputation. Tanzania, One presidential candidate with exploitable weaknesses mapped just like my weaknesses. A candidate who promised to review all foreign resource extraction contracts. They've been surveilling his family for 6 years. His wife's medical history, UKA documented. His children's schools, UKAD, mapped. His elderly mother's care facility, security gaps identified. The file on him contains a section called Leverage Activation Timeline, a literal schedule for when to threaten his family if he wins and tries to implement his campaign promises. Ghana, 4 opposition leaders under preventive monitoring, just like the monitoring they did on ME. All 4 advocate for economic sovereignty. All 4 question IMF agreements. All 4 propose policies that would reduce Western corporate access to Ghanaian resources. And all 4 have files documenting their families, their finances, their private lives. All 4 are marked for intervention if they gain executive power. I sat in my office reading these files for 6 hours straight, page after page of African leaders being targeted exactly like ME. And these were just the West African files that leaked, just one section of their continental operation. How many other African leaders are in files I haven't seen? How many families are being photographed? How many children are being mapped as leverage points? This isn't intelligence gathering, this is systematic preparation for blackmail, coercion, and control across an entire continent. Identify African leaders who might challenge Western interests. Start surveillance early, before they have power. Document everything about their families. Find vulnerabilities, medical issues, financial irregularities, personal scandals, anything exploitable. Map security gaps around their children. Prepare pressure operations for activation when needed. Then wait. Wait for them to gain power. Wait for them to try to serve their people instead of Western interests. Wait for the moment they choose sovereignty over submission. Then activate everything. Leak the scandals. Threaten the families. Create the crises. Break them through the people they love. It's systematic. It's coordinated. It's continental in scope. And until those files landed on my desk, most African leaders didn't know how deep it went. I realized something reading those files. Every African leader who mysteriously changed their policies after gaining power, they probably got the visit. The intelligence officers showing them files on their families, making the threats clear. Every African president who campaigned on sovereignty but governed on submission, they probably saw their children's photographs with security gaps marked in red. Every reformer who suddenly became compliant, they probably received evidence of surveillance on their wives, their parents, their siblings. The pattern I saw in those files explained decades of African political behavior that never made sense before. It wasn't that our leaders were all corrupt or cowardly, it's that they were all being systematically targeted through their families. So I had a choice when I saw my name in those files alongside all those other African leaders. I could do what most do, comply quietly, protect my family by surrendering my sovereignty, let the theft continue, and live with the shame. Or I could fight back. Expose the operation, risk everything, trust MY people to protect MY family, and break the cycle for everyone. I chose to fight. Not because I'm braver than other leaders, but because my counter-surveillance gave me an advantage. I knew their operation before they activated it. I had time to prepare my countermeasures, time to secure my family through alternative means, time to build alliances with other nations who could provide security when Western institutions retaliated. Most leaders don't get that preparation time. They gain power, they try to serve their people, and suddenly they're blindsided by threats against their children from files they didn't know existed. I had the advantage of knowledge, and I used it. When I published those 847 pages, I wasn't just protecting my family, I was warning every African leader what's being prepared against them. I was showing every president, every minister, every military officer who advocates for sovereignty, you're being watched. Your families are being documented. They're preparing to use your children against you. But I was also showing them the solution. Expose it first. Don't wait for them to activate their leverage. Don't let them threaten you in secret. Don't protect their operation by staying silent. Publish the surveillance. Show your people what's being done to you. Turn their leverage into your evidence. That's how you break their power. That's how you protect your family. That's how you maintain your sovereignty. And it's working. Since I published those files, 17 African leaders have contacted ME privately, 17 leaders who found references to themselves or their colleagues in those leaked pages. They're conducting their own counter-surveillance now. They're sweeping their families for foreign intelligence operations. They're identifying the assets working against them. They're preparing their own exposures, their own publications, their own countermeasures. The Continental Awakening has begun, not because of ME personally, but because those files proved what many suspected but couldn't prove. This is happening to all of us. And once you know you're not alone, once you see the systematic pattern, once you understand they're doing this to hundreds of African leaders, the fear diminishes. Because we can protect each other, we can share intelligence, we can coordinate security, we can build the network they fear. So here's my message to every African leader reading those files and seeing your name or your colleague's name. They're coming for you, if they haven't already. Your family is being surveilled. Your children are being photographed. Your vulnerabilities are being mapped. They're building the leverage they'll use against you when you try to serve your people instead of their interests. The question is, will you wait for them to activate it, or will you expose it first? Will you protect their operation by staying silent, or will you protect your family by going public? I chose exposure. I chose transparency. I chose to trust my people over trusting their threats. And my family is safer now than when their operation was secret, because my entire nation knows they're being targeted, and my entire nation protects them. That's the power of truth over secrecy. That's the power of exposure over leverage. That's the power of trusting your people over fearing your enemies. We're not alone. 54 African nations, hundreds of leaders like ME, all OUR families in their files. This isn't about me in Burkina Faso. This is systematic against all of US. This is the infrastructure they use to control ME, to control you, to control all of us. They don't send armies anymore. They send intelligence officers with cameras to photograph my children, your children, our children. They don't occupy our capitals. They occupy my psychology, your psychology, through fear. Fear for my children, fear for your families, fear of what they'll do to US if we disobey. Let ME explain exactly how this system works against all of us. This isn't random surveillance. This isn't opportunistic intelligence gathering. This is architectural. They've built an entire continental infrastructure designed specifically to control African leadership through family targeting. In Nairobi, there's a Mossad station with 12 officers. Their only job, surveilling Kenyan political figures and their families. In Lagos, there's a CIA front company, a security consultancy, that maps the movements of Nigerian military officers' children. In Johannesburg, French DGSE operates through a cultural center that recruits assets inside South African government families. In Accra, MI6 runs operations through an educational foundation that offers scholarships to children of Ghanaian officials, scholarships that come with surveillance. This exists in every African capital, multiple intelligence services, all coordinating, all targeting our families. And here's what makes it truly sinister. They share information about US with each other. The files I have prove this coordination. There are memos between Mossad and CIA about ME, reports from French DGSE to MI6 about other African leaders, intelligence sharing agreements specifically focused on African political figures of concern. When Mossad photographs my children, they share those photographs with CIA. When CIA documents a Nigerian general's family vulnerabilities, they share that intelligence with French DGSE. When MI6 maps a Tanzanian candidate's security gaps, they share those maps with Mossad. They've created a network of surveillance against US, a coordinated continental operation where every Western intelligence service contributes pieces to the puzzle of controlling African leadership. And it all feeds into a centralized database. I know this because the leaked files reference it: Atlas System, African Leadership Tracking and Leverage Assessment System. Atlas. They actually named their system for controlling US. It's a shared database accessible to Mossad, CIA, DGSE, MI6, and other allied intelligence services. It contains files on thousands of African political figures, military officers, business leaders, civil society activists, anyone who might influence African policy. For each person in Atlas, they maintain family relationship maps, every relative, every connection, every person we love. Financial records, any ID, bank accounts, business dealings, any irregularity they can exploit. Medical histories, HE, health issues, medications, psychological vulnerabilities. Security assessments, SAM, where our families live, where our children go to school, gaps in our protection, compromise opportunities, anything scandalous, anything embarrassing, anything they can threaten to expose. Leverage activation plans, M&A step-by-step procedures for how to pressure each person through their family. This isn't intelligence. This is a control grid covering an entire continent. The files show the scale of resources they dedicate to controlling U.S. Annual budget for African family surveillance operations, $340 million, just for watching OUR families. Number of intelligence officers assigned full-time to African leader targeting, over 600 across all services. Number of human assets recruited inside African governments, schools, hospitals, banks, over 3,000. I had a choice, surrender sovereignty or fight back by exposing their operation. I chose to fight because I knew about their surveillance before they activated it against ME. When I published those 847 pages, 17 other African leaders found their names and started their own counter-surveillance. This proved it's not just ME, it's a $340 million system called Atlas targeting all African leaders' families across 54 nations. My message to every African leader, expose their leverage first, trust your people, and watch your family become safer through transparency, not secrecy. Number of technical surveillance operations, XPS, phone taps, email monitoring, location tracking, active against African leaders, over 8,000. They spend more money surveilling African leaders' families than many African countries spend on their entire intelligence services. That's how important controlling U.S. is to them. That's how threatened they are by the possibility of genuine African sovereignty. And the files detail exactly how they activate this leverage against U.S. Identification. An African leader shows signs of sovereignty-oriented policy intentions. That's their language for anyone who might serve their people instead of Western interests. Assessment, ATA, review existing files in Atlas, determine which family members offer the best leverage, identify the specific threats most likely to work. Preparation, intensify surveillance on selected family members. Update security gap assessments. Prepare scandal materials for potential leak. Approach, intelligence officers make contact with the leader, usually through an intermediary. Show them evidence of surveillance on their family. Make the threat implicit but clear. Pressure, if the leader doesn't comply immediately, escalate, leak minor scandals, create security incidents near family members, make the threat explicit. Activation, resists, if the leader still resists, activate full leverage, leak major scandals, threaten direct harm to family members, use every piece of intelligence gathered over years. This is their standard protocol against ANY African leader who challenges their interests. I know because I saw it deployed against ME, and I saw references to it being deployed against dozens of other leaders. But their plan against ME just collapsed. Because I'm not keeping these files about my family secret. I'm publishing everything they have on me. The 847 pages about my family are backed up in 7 countries: Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, Algeria, Zimbabwe. If anything happens to me, if they try to destroy these files again, if they attempt to silence this exposure, ESPA, those backups go public automatically. Every journalist who wants my files can have them. I've sent copies to 50 major news organizations across Africa, Asia, Latin America, and even some honest journalists in the West. Every African leader can see exactly what they did to ME and what they're doing to you. I've personally delivered copies to 30 African heads of state. They know now. They can't claim ignorance. Every citizen can understand how I'm being controlled and how your leaders are being controlled. These files are online, downloadable, shareable. The truth is, OUT. The files show their operations against ME in explicit detail. The photographs of my children, time-stamped, location-tagged, showing systematic surveillance over years. The plans against my family, actual operational documents with titles like Traoré family pressure points and leverage activation contingencies. The coordination between Mossad, CIA, French DGSE, British MI6 MAA, email exchanges, intelligence sharing memos, joint operational planning documents MAA, all targeting ME. All of them working together against ME, sharing intelligence about ME, Dividing targets in MY family, Mossad takes the children, CIA handles the parents, DGSE monitors the extended family. Coordinating pressure on ME, EI, synchronized timing for when to leak scandals, when to create security incidents, when to make explicit threats. It's all documented, every crime, every violation, every threat against my family. They thought I would keep this buried to protect my family. They calculated that my instinct to protect my children would override my commitment to sovereignty. They thought burning that hard drive would destroy the evidence against ME. They thought even if I got copies, I'd never dare publish them because it would put my family at greater risk. They were wrong about me. Now let me speak directly to Tel Aviv, to Washington, to Paris, to London, and I want you listening. You think threatening my 6-year-old daughter will make ME reopen those gold mines? You think photographing my children at school, mapping their security vulnerabilities, planning extraction routes, you think that will make ME surrender? You think 11 years of surveillance on ME, 11 years of building files on MY family, 11 years of preparing leverage against ME, you think that will break ME? My answer to you is no. Not just no. Hell no. Burkina Faso's resources belong to ME and MY people, not to you in Tel Aviv, not to you in Washington, not to you in Paris. Our gold, gold you want from our mines, stays in our ground until it benefits my people, not your corporations. Our uranium, MIC, the uranium you need for your reactors, stays in our ground until it powers my cities, not yours. Our cobalt, our lithium, our rare earth minerals, everything you want to steal from US, AA all, stays in our ground until we decide how to use it for our benefit. My sovereignty is not for sale to you at any price. Not for $500 million in IMF loans, not for security guarantees, not for development assistance, not for anything. And threatening my children doesn't change that answer. It strengthens my resolve. And to every African leader, I'm talking to you directly. You're in those files too. Your family is being surveilled too. Your children are being photographed too. Right now, as you watch this, there are intelligence officers building files on your family. They're documenting your children's schedules. They're mapping your home security gaps. They're identifying which of your family members can be pressured, compromised, or threatened. They're preparing the leverage they'll use against you when you try to serve your people instead of their interests. Some of you already know this. You've already received the visit from intelligence officers showing you files on your family. You've already been told what will happen if you don't comply. And some of you complied. I don't judge you for that. The instinct to protect your children is powerful. I understand it. But I'm here to tell you, there's another way. You don't have to choose between your family's safety and your nation's sovereignty. You can protect both by exposing their operations instead of submitting to them. Here's what I did that you can do too. I went public with the threats against MY family before they could activate them against ME. I showed my people the surveillance, the files, the plans. I made it a national issue, not a personal secret. And my people responded by protecting my family. Not because I ordered them to, but because they understood, if foreign intelligence services will threaten the president's children, they'll threaten anyone. Now, my children are protected by an entire nation that knows they're being targeted. Try to harm them, and you're not attacking my family, you're attacking Burkina Faso itself. That's how you turn their leverage against you into your strength. That's how you protect your family while maintaining your sovereignty. And when enough of US do this, when enough African leaders expose these operations instead of submitting to them, their entire system collapses. Because their power over US depends on secrecy, on US being isolated, on each of US thinking we're alone in being targeted. But we're not alone. We're all being targeted. And once we all know it, once we all expose it, once we all coordinate our resistance, they lose their power over US. That's what I'm building. Not just my resistance, OUR resistance. A continental movement of African leaders who refuse to be controlled through threats against OUR families. Leaders who choose transparency over secrecy, exposure over submission, sovereignty over safety. And every leader who joins this movement makes all of us safer. Because they can't target all of us. They can't threaten hundreds of families simultaneously without exposing their entire operation. So here's my ultimatum to those intelligence services. Your system is exposed. Your files are public. Your operations are known. You can continue surveilling US. You can continue building files. You can continue threatening our families. But it won't work anymore. Because we're not afraid of you anymore. We're not isolated anymore. We're not alone anymore. We're not silent anymore. And your power over US was always based on our fear, our isolation, our silence. Take those away, and you have nothing. And here's my promise to Africa. I will expose every operation they run against US. I will publish every file they build on OUR families. I will coordinate with every leader willing to resist their control. I will build the network they fear, African leaders protecting each other's sovereignty by exposing their operations together. This is bigger than ME, bigger than Burkina Faso, bigger than any one nation. This is about liberating an entire continent from psychological occupation. And it starts with refusing to let them use OUR children against US. They're building leverage against you right now, waiting for the moment you try to serve your people instead of their interests. Will you cave to their pressure? Will you reopen the mines? Will you sign their contracts? Will you let the theft continue? Or will you stand with me, with Burkina Faso, with Mali, with Niger, and every other nation that's chosen sovereignty over submission? Because here's the truth I learned that they don't want you to know. They threatened ME with economic collapse if I expelled French forces. I'm growing faster than their projections. They threatened ME with isolation if I rejected the IMF. I found alternative partners within weeks. They threatened my family to make ME reopen the mines. My family is protected and the mines stay closed. Every threat they made against ME was a bluff. And now that I've published the files, every African leader can see it's a bluff against you too. You want to know how I'm protecting my family? Transparency. The moment I made their threats against ME public, they lost power over ME. I told my people, the Burkinabe people, that foreign intelligence agencies were targeting my family. I showed them the pattern against ME. I published the files about ME. And my people rallied around me because they understood, if they'll do this to my family, they'll do it to anyone. Now my children are protected by an entire nation that knows they're being targeted because of ME. Try to harm my children, and you're not just attacking my family, you're attacking my nation, Burkina Faso. That's how I turned their leverage against ME into my strength. This is the moment I'm calling for African unity, not through Western-controlled organizations like ECOWAS that threaten sanctions against ME and nations like mine, but through real solidarity that protects me and you. Nation to nation, leader to leader, people to people. The alliance of Sahel states, we alliance with Mali and Niger, we're proving it's possible. We share intelligence on operations against ME and against them. We coordinate security for my family and their leaders. We back each other when Western institutions retaliate against ME. Because when I stand with other African nations protecting each other's sovereignty, their leverage against ME disappears. They can't isolate ME if 3 nations stand with ME. They can't threaten my family if neighboring nations provide security to ME. They can't use economic warfare against ME if we build alternative partnerships. So here's my message, and I want you in Mossad, CIA, DGSE, MI6 listening to ME. Your playbook against me is burned. Your operations against me are exposed. Your leverage over me is gone. You can continue surveillance on ME. You can continue building files on MY family. You can continue threatening MY children. But it won't work on ME anymore. Because I'm not afraid of you. And here's my promise to Africa, my promise to you. Every file they have on ME, I'll expose. Every operation they run against ME, I'll reveal. Every threat they make against MY family, I'll publish. No more secrets about ME, no more hidden leverage over ME, no more controlling ME through fear. The era of controlling ME and leaders like ME psychologically is ending. Not because I'm stronger than them militarily, but because I'm no longer afraid of them psychologically. And fear of them was always their only real weapon against ME. Mossad spent 11 years and millions of dollars building files on MY family, ME, on ME. They photographed MY children. They mapped routes to kidnap MY daughter. They planned operations against MY wife. All to create leverage for the moment I'd choose Africa over their interests. That moment came for me. They activated everything against ME. The mines I closed stay closed. The uranium I'm protecting stays in our ground. My sovereignty remains intact. Their evil plan to reopen control over ME and Africa through fear and threats has flopped against ME. Because my intelligence told ME every single step they were planning against ME, and now it's my time, my mission, to protect all of Africa from what they did to ME. I'm done being afraid. I'm done being controlled. I'm done surrendering my children's future for their present profit. The files about ME are public. The operations against ME are exposed. The playbook they used on ME is destroyed. Let me tell you what happens now. Every intelligence operation you run against me gets exposed by me. Every file you build on my family gets published by me. Every threat you make against my children gets turned into evidence against you by me. Because I've changed the rules on you. You operated in shadows for 70 years against leaders like ME. You built files in secret. You made threats behind closed doors. You controlled through fear that nobody could prove. I just dragged you into the light. Those 847 pages about ME, they're on every news site. Every African leader has read what you did to ME. Every citizen knows how you tried to break ME through my family. Your secret operations against me aren't secret anymore. And once your methods against me are exposed, they stop working on me and everyone else. You want to know what's happening right now because of what I did? Right now, in Kenya, a presidential candidate just expelled your intelligence advisors from his campaign because he read what you did to me. Right now, in Nigeria, military officers are sweeping their families for your surveillance because they saw what you did to my children. Right now, in Tanzania, a finance minister just rejected your technical assistance because she knows what that meant for ME. Right now, in Ghana, opposition leaders are publishing their own files about your operations because I showed them it's possible. I didn't just protect my family from you. I showed 54 nations how to protect their families from you. That's what you created when you targeted me. And here's what terrifies you most about me. I'm not alone anymore. I'm not isolated like you planned. Mali stands with ME. When you tried to sanction ME, Mali said they'd leave ECOWAS before abandoning ME. Niger stands with ME. When you tried to cut my financing, Niger opened their banks to ME. When Western institutions suspended my credit lines, President Chiani called ME personally. Brother Ibrahim, our central bank is yours. Our reserves support you. We stand together. And they delivered. $85 million in emergency financing, no conditions, no sovereignty demands, just solidarity. Chad is watching ME and learning from ME. President Deby sent his intelligence chief to Ouagadougou last month. Show us how you identified their surveillance operations. Teach us your countermeasures. We want to protect our families the way you protected yours. You think threatening my 6-year-old daughter will make ME reopen your gold mines? My answer is, hell no. Our resources stay in our ground, not yours in Tel Aviv or Washington. I'm telling every African leader, you're in those files too. Your children are being photographed right now, and they're building leverage to use when you try to serve your people instead of theirs. I exposed their threats before they activated them. My people now protect my family, and that's how you turn their leverage into your strength. Transparency destroys their power. Algeria is coordinating with ME. President Tebboune doesn't just offer diplomatic support. He shares intelligence on French operations across the Sahel. His services identified 3 French assets operating in Burkina Faso that my services missed. He warned me about them. That's real alliance. Zimbabwe is sharing intelligence with ME. President Mnangagwa knows Western intelligence operations intimately. They tried to overthrow him multiple times. He's teaching ME their tactics, showing me their patterns, helping me anticipate their next moves against me. The alliance of Sahel states that I'm building isn't just 3 countries anymore. It's becoming the network you feared. And it's expanding faster than you can contain it. Eritrea reached out to ME last week. They want to join the intelligence sharing framework. They've been resisting Western control for decades. They have experience I can learn from. Ethiopia is watching closely. They remember how Western powers tried to dismember their country. They see in my resistance an echo of their own struggle. Informal channels are opening. Tanzania's new administration is reviewing their relationship with Western intelligence services. They've asked ME for advice, for copies of the files, for guidance on conducting their own counter-surveillance. Equatorial Guinea expelled a CIA station chief last month, officially for undiplomatic activities, unofficially, because they read my files and found references to operations against their president's family. The Republic of Congo is quietly building alternatives to French banking systems. They're talking to Chinese institutions, using my model, learning from my experience. And every nation that joins my alliance is one less nation you control. The mathematics are simple and devastating for you. When it was just ME, you could isolate me, apply maximum pressure, make an example of ME to scare others. When it became ME plus Mali plus Niger, you had to divide your pressure, your resources are finite, your leverage is limited. Now it's ME plus 6 nations coordinating. Soon it will be 10, then 15, then 20. At what point does your system break? At what point can you no longer maintain surveillance on hundreds of African leaders across dozens of countries? You're already stretched thin. I can see it in your operations. The surveillance on my family has decreased by 40% in the last 6 months. Not because you stopped caring, because you don't have enough officers to maintain the same intensity while also watching the leaders in Mali, Niger, Chad, Algeria, and Zimbabwe who are coordinating with ME. Every leader who stands with me is one less leader who fears you. And fear was your weapon. Take away the fear, and what do you have left? Every file I expose about your operations against me makes it harder for you to run operations against them. Because now they know your tactics. They know your patterns. They know what to look for. When I published how you recruited assets in my children's school, every African leader started investigating their own children's schools. You lost dozens of assets across the continent in 2 months. When I exposed how you penetrated my wife's medical clinic, every African first family changed their healthcare security protocols. Your medical intelligence operations collapsed across West Africa. When I revealed your surveillance technology and methods, my allies started deploying countermeasures. Your technical collection capabilities dropped 60% in the alliance of Sahel states. I'm not just defending my sovereignty, I'm building a movement that defends our sovereignty. And you can't stop me. You thought economic warfare would break me. You were wrong about me. Let me walk you through exactly how your economic weapons failed against me. When you cut my Western financing, IMF when World Bank suspended programs, when IMF withheld disbursements, when European development banks froze projects, you thought I'd have no choice but to crawl back to you. I found Chinese financing within 3 weeks. Better terms than you ever offered me. Infrastructure loans at 2.5% interest, A-tree, half what you charged. No conditions about privatizing my state enterprises. No demands about my labor laws. No requirements about my resource policies. They finance the roads I need, the ports I need, the power plants I need. And they don't tell ME how to govern my country. When you closed my access to your banks, when Citibank terminated relationships, when BNP Paribas shut down credit lines, when Standard Chartered pulled out, you thought you'd strangle my trade. I opened accounts in Russian banks within 2 weeks. Lower interest rates than your banks charged me. Trade financing for my exports, letters of credit for my imports. And they don't lecture ME about democracy while supporting dictatorships you prefer. VTB Bank handles my oil transactions now. Sberbank finances my agricultural exports. They provide the services I need without the political interference you demanded. When you suspended my IMF programs, N1 you declared me non-compliant with your structural adjustment demands. You thought economic isolation would force my surrender. I built partnerships with Iran, Venezuela, Turkey within a month. Real partnerships where they respect ME as an equal, not a subordinate. Iran provides my oil refining technology. Venezuela shares intelligence on resisting Western economic warfare. Turkey finances my defense industries. These aren't colonial relationships where they extract my resources and dictate my policies. These are partnerships based on mutual respect and mutual benefit. Every economic weapon you used against me just pushed me toward your competitors. And now your competitors are gaining influence in my country and across my continent because of your attacks on me. You played yourselves against me. Think about the strategic stupidity of your approach. You tried to punish me for choosing sovereignty by cutting off Western financing. So I turned to China, which is your main geopolitical competitor. You tried to pressure me by closing Western banks to me, so I turned to Russia, which you're trying to isolate globally. You tried to break me through economic isolation, so I built partnerships with Iran, Venezuela, and other nations you've sanctioned. Every move you made against ME strengthened your competitor's position in Africa. China now has infrastructure projects in Burkina Faso worth $2 billion. That's $2 billion in influence you lost because you tried to punish me. Russia now trains my military and provides my defense equipment. That's security cooperation you lost because you thought threatening me would work. Iran now shares intelligence with ME and provides technical assistance. That's partnership you lost because you tried to isolate me. You turned me into a bridge between Africa and your competitors. You created the very outcome you feared. That's not strategy, that's incompetence. And you want to talk about security? Let me talk to you about security. When I expelled your French troops from my soil, 4,000 soldiers you claimed were essential for my country's stability, you said my country would collapse into chaos without you. You predicted terrorist takeover within 6 months, you forecast military defeat, you warned of humanitarian catastrophe. 18 months later, my security is stronger than when you were here. Let me give you the facts you don't want to acknowledge. Terrorist attacks in Burkina Faso decreased 35% since I expelled French forces, not increased. Decreased. My military's operational effectiveness improved 50% since Russian advisors replaced French trainers, not declined, improved. Civilian casualties from security operations dropped 60% since I changed my rules of engagement based on Iranian intelligence advice, not increased, dropped. Territory under government control expanded 40% since Chinese surveillance technology replaced your assistance, not contracted, expanded. Every metric you said would worsen actually improved when I expelled you. Russian military advisors train my forces now. But here's the difference between them and you. They train my soldiers to defend my country. You trained my soldiers to protect French interests. They teach my officers to think strategically about my security needs. You taught my officers to depend on French intelligence and French logistics. They help ME build independent military capability. You kept ME dependent on French support. They don't have bases in my country. They don't demand operational control. They don't override MY command decisions. They're advisors who actually advise, not occupiers who pretend to assist. Chinese technology secures my communications now. But here's what you won't admit. It protects ME from your spying better than your technology ever protected me from anyone else's spying. Because your security assistance was always surveillance disguised as protection, your communications equipment was always backdoored for your intelligence services. Chinese systems don't have backdoors for Western intelligence. That's why you hate that I use them, not because they're insecure, because you can't penetrate them. Iranian intelligence shares information with ME about your operations. Information that helps ME counter you. Information that you would never share with me because it would expose your operations. They tell ME when Mossad activates assets in MY region. They warn ME about CIA operations targeting MY government. They share lessons from decades of resisting your pressure. Not to control ME like you tried, but to help ME maintain my independence from you. I don't need your protection anymore. I have alternatives to you. And here's the paradox that terrifies you. My security improved when I expelled you, not despite expelling you, because I expelled you. Because your presence in my country was never about protecting me, it was about controlling me. Your troops were here to protect French uranium mines, not Burkina Bay citizens. Your intelligence operations targeted my government officials, not terrorist networks. Your security assistance kept me weak and dependent, not strong and independent. So when I expelled you and built alternative security partnerships, my actual security improved dramatically. And every African nation is watching ME prove that your military presence isn't necessary for our security. They're watching ME demonstrate that African countries can defend themselves without Western military bases. They're seeing ME show that partnerships with non-Western powers can provide effective security cooperation. They're learning from ME that expelling Western forces doesn't lead to collapse, it leads to sovereignty. My security improved when I expelled you. And that demonstration effect is spreading. Niger expelled French troops after watching my success. Their security improved too. Mali expelled French troops before ME. Their security has been improving steadily. Chad is reviewing the French military presence. They're watching OUR examples. Senegal is questioning the value of French bases. They're seeing OUR results. Côte d'Ivoire's new generation of military officers is asking why they need French troops. They're studying OUR model. The dominoes are falling, not toward chaos like you predicted, toward sovereignty. But here's my greatest victory over you. And this is what matters more than economics, more than military capability, more than geopolitical alliances. You don't scare me anymore. For 11 years, you built files on me thinking that one day you could use my family against me to control my decisions. For 11 years, you photographed my children thinking that would give you leverage over my policies. For 11 years, you planned operations against my wife thinking that would break my resolve. For 11 years, you prepared the leverage you would activate when I tried to serve my people instead of your interests. And when you finally tried to use all that against me, when you showed me the files, made the threats, activated the operations, I didn't break. I published everything. I turned your leverage into my evidence, your threats into my weapon, your files into my proof of your crimes. And I'm still here, still standing, still fighting you, still winning against you. My children are safe, protected by my people, not threatened by you. My wife is secure, defended by my nation, not vulnerable to you. My parents are guarded, shielded by my sovereignty, not exposed to you. Because my people protect my family now, not out of fear of you, but out of love for US and commitment to our sovereignty. You lost your psychological grip on me, and that was your only real power over me. Because all your other weapons, depulator, economic pressure, military threats, diplomatic isolation, enemy only work if I'm afraid of them. And I'm not afraid anymore. I looked at your worst threats, I faced your maximum pressure, I survived your full retaliation, and I'm stronger now than before. You attacked me. That's my greatest victory over you. Not that I survived, but that I thrived. And that psychological victory is irreversible. You can't make me afraid again. I've seen behind your curtain. I've called your bluff. I've survived your worst. You can't intimidate me with threats I've already faced and overcome. You can't pressure me with leverage I've already exposed and neutralized. You can't control me with fear I've already conquered and transcended. The psychological chains are broken, not just for ME, for everyone watching ME. Every African leader who sees ME stand up to you and survive thinks, if Ibrahim can do it, maybe I can too. Every African citizen who watches ME defy you and thrive thinks, maybe we don't need them after all. Every African nation that observes my success against you thinks, maybe sovereignty is possible. That's the shift you can't reverse, the psychological liberation you can't undo. I broke your spell over Africa, not through rhetoric, through demonstration. I showed it's possible to reject you and survive, to defy you and thrive, to expose you and win. And once people see that demonstration, they can't unsee it. The fear is gone. The illusion is shattered. The power is broken. So here's my greatest victory over you. You spent 11 years, millions of dollars, and countless resources building psychological leverage over ME. And I destroyed it all in one decision. Publish. One choice to expose rather than hide. To fight rather than submit. To trust my people rather than fear your threats. That one decision broke your entire system of control over me. And it showed every African leader how to break your control over them. That's the victory you can never reverse. The defeat you can never overcome. Because your power was always psychological. And the psychology has shifted. You don't scare me anymore. For 11 years, you built files on me, thinking that one day you could use my family against me to control my decisions, my policies, my sovereignty. 11 years of surveillance, 11 years of documentation, 11 years of preparing the psychological weapon you thought would break me when the moment came. You photographed my children thinking that would give you leverage over me. My 6-year-old daughter walking to school, you photographed her, multiple angles, different days, building a file on a child. My son playing in our yard, you photographed him, documented his routines, mapped his vulnerabilities. You thought those photographs would be your trump card, your ultimate leverage, the thing I couldn't resist when you showed them to me with implicit threats. You planned operations against my wife thinking that would break me. You infiltrated her medical clinic, you copied her private health records, you documented her daily routines, her friends, her vulnerabilities. You prepared operations to compromise her doctor, to create medical emergencies, to use her health as a pressure point against ME. You thought my love for my wife would override my commitment to my country's sovereignty. And when you finally tried to use all that against Emmy, when you showed Emmy the files, made the threats clear, activated your carefully prepared operations, when you finally pressed it, I laughed at you. Not because it wasn't serious, not because I wasn't concerned for my family, but because I saw through your bluff. I published your files, every page, every photograph, every operational plan. I exposed your operations, the surveillance teams, the recruited assets, the planned pressure points. I turned your leverage into my weapon. Your secret files became my public evidence of your crimes. And I'm still here, still standing, still fighting you. Not hiding, not compromised, not broken, not compliant. Still closing your gold mines, still protecting our uranium, still expelling your troops, still building African sovereignty. Everything you tried to stop me from doing, I'm doing more aggressively now than before you attacked my family. My children are safe, safer now than when your surveillance was secret. Because now my entire nation knows they're being targeted by foreign intelligence. My entire nation watches over them. My entire nation protects them. You thought threatening them would isolate me. Instead, you united my people around protecting them. My wife is protected, better protected now than when your operations were hidden. Because now she knows who to watch for, now she has counter-surveillance protecting her, now she has a nation that sees her safety as a matter of national sovereignty. You thought compromising her would break me. Instead, you made her a symbol of resistance. My parents are secure, more secure now than when your files were classified. Because now they understand the threat, now they have protection, now they know that their safety is connected to our nation's independence. You thought using them as leverage would control me. Instead, you made them heroes of our liberation struggle. Because my people protect my family now, not out of fear of you, but out of love for US. They don't protect my children because I ordered them to. They protect my children because they understand if foreign intelligence will threaten the president's 6-year-old daughter, no African child is safe. They don't protect my wife because it's their duty. They protect my wife because they know if foreign agencies will compromise the First Lady's medical care, no African woman's health care is private. They don't protect my parents because of protocol. They protect my parents because they recognize if intelligence services will target the president's elderly parents, no African family is beyond their reach. My family's security is now inseparable from OUR national sovereignty. Attack my family, and you attack Burkina Faso itself. That's how I turned your leverage into my strength. You lost your psychological grip on me, and that was your only real power over me. Because all your other weapons, the economic pressure, the diplomatic isolation, the military threats, those only work if I'm afraid of them. And I'm not afraid of you anymore. I've seen your worst. I've faced your maximum pressure. I've survived your full retaliation. And I'm stronger now than before you attacked me. So let me speak to my fellow Africans watching this, to every leader, every activist, every citizen who wants to understand how to break free from their control. You see what I did? You see how I defeated their leverage? Transparency. That's the weapon they fear most. That's the countermeasure they can't defeat. The moment I made their threats against me public, their power over me evaporated. Because their threats only work in darkness, in secret meetings, in private conversations where they show you files and make implications about what might happen to your family. But when you make those threats public, 27C, when you show your people the files, the photographs, the operational plans, the threat loses its power. Because now it's not just your family at risk, it's your nation's sovereignty, and your people will protect both. The moment I published their files about me, their leverage against me disappeared. Because leverage requires secrecy. They need you to be afraid of what they'll expose. They need you to believe they have information that will destroy you if revealed. But when you expose it yourself, when you publish their files before they can weaponize them, there's nothing left to threaten you with. The moment I showed my people what they were doing to me, my people became my protection from them. Because people understand injustice when they see it clearly, when they see foreign intelligence agencies photographing their president's children, planning operations against their first lady, building files on their leader's family, they recognize it as an attack on ALL of them. And they respond by protecting what's being attacked. That's the formula I'm giving you. That's the weapon I'm handing you. Not a military weapon, not an economic strategy, a psychological weapon that breaks their psychological control. Transparency defeats their leverage, exposure defeats their threats, public truth defeats their secret operations. Stop hiding their operations against you. Stop protecting their secrets about you. Stop being afraid of what they'll expose about you. Because your fear is their weapon, your silence is their shield, your secrecy is their power. Expose them first, publish their files, show your people what they're doing to you. Don't wait for them to activate their leverage. Don't give them the advantage of surprise. Don't let them control the timing and framing of the exposure. Take control. Expose it yourself. Frame it as an attack on your nation's sovereignty, not as your personal scandal. And watch your people protect you from them. Watch your citizens rally around you when they understand you're being targeted for serving them instead of foreign interests. Watch your nation unite behind you when they see the evidence of foreign intelligence operations against your family. Watch your sovereignty strengthen when transparency replaces secrecy in your relationship with your people. And to you, Mossad, CIA, DGSE, MI6, and every agency that targeted I'm not finished with you. Those 847 pages you had on me, that's just what leaked to me. That's just what one whistleblower could extract from one burned hard drive. But I know there's more. I know your files on me are more extensive than what I've seen. I know your operations against me go deeper than what's been exposed. I want ALL of it. Every file you have on me, every operation you ran against me, every photograph you took of my family, every operational plan you developed, every intelligence assessment you wrote, every threat you prepared. And I want your files on every other African leader you're targeting like you targeted me. Every surveillance operation, every leverage assessment, every family vulnerability you've documented, every pressure plan you've prepared. All of it. Release them to me voluntarily, or I'll expose every asset you have working for you in my country. I know who they are. My intelligence identified them while you were busy watching me. The teacher in my daughter's school, I know. The nurse in my wife's clinic, I know. The business partner reporting on my father, I know. Every asset, every operative, every recruited source you have in Burkina Faso, my intelligence has identified them. You have 30 days to deliver those files to ME. 30 days to hand over every document, every photograph, every file you have on ME and other African leaders. Or I start publishing names of your operatives working against me in Burkina Faso. Not just names, photographs, addresses, operational details, evidence of their activities. I'll expose your entire network in my country, and then I'll help my allies expose your networks in their countries. I will hunt down every operation you run against ME, every surveillance team, every technical operation, every human asset. I will find them and expose them. I will expose every file you build on my family, every new photograph, every updated assessment, every additional leverage point you try to develop. I will publish them before you can use them. I will publish every threat you make against my people, every pressure attempt, every coercive operation, every effort to control me through fear. I will make it all public. I will turn every weapon you use against ME into evidence against you. Every surveillance operation becomes proof of your interference. Every threat becomes documentation of your crimes. Every file becomes my exhibit of your guilt. And I will teach every African leader how to do the same to you. I'm not keeping this formula secret. I'm not protecting my advantage. I'm sharing it with every African leader who wants to break free from your control. I'm teaching them counter-surveillance. I'm showing them how to identify your assets. I'm giving them the playbook for exposing your operations before you activate them. Your era of controlling US through fear is over. 70 years of psychological domination, 70 years of controlling African leaders through threats against their families, 70 years of operating in shadows, over. My era of exposing you has just begun. And every day, I'm getting better at it. Every day, my intelligence is identifying more of your operations. Every day, more African leaders are joining me in this fight. Welcome to my new Africa, where we fight back against you, where we expose you, where we defeat you. Not with your weapons, not with military force, not with economic warfare. With your own files against you, with your own operations exposed, with your own methods turned against you. You came for my family thinking that would control me. I'm coming for your entire operation against US. Not just your operations against me, your entire continental infrastructure of control. Every surveillance network, every recruited asset, every operational plan, every file on every African leader. I'm coming for all of it. And I won't stop until your operations against Africa are completely exposed and completely dismantled. That's not a threat, that's a promise. From a father protecting his children, from a president protecting his people, from an African leader protecting our continent. These aren't separate identities for ME, they're one mission. When I protect my children from your surveillance, I'm protecting every African child from your operations. When I defend my family from your leverage, I'm defending every African family from your control. When I expose your files on me, I'm exposing your system of domination over all of us. You thought you could separate these roles. You thought threatening my children would only affect me as a father, not me as a president. You were wrong. Because when you photographed my 6-year-old daughter, you weren't just attacking my family, you were attacking the principle that African leaders can serve their people without foreign interference. When you planned operations against my wife, you weren't just targeting my household, you were targeting the idea that African sovereignty is possible. When you built files on my parents, you weren't just collecting intelligence on my family, you were building the infrastructure to control African leadership for generations. So my response isn't just personal, it's political. I'm not just protecting my children, I'm dismantling your system that threatens all African children whose parents dare to choose sovereignty. I'm not just defending my family, I'm destroying your method of controlling African leaders through their families. I'm not just exposing your operations against me, I'm revealing your entire continental strategy of psychological domination